everybody. My name is Eric McLeod.
And I'm Chris Holden.
And you are listening to and watching Low Blow Radio podcast. It is Wednesday, November 4th, 2020. Chris, what did you think of things tonight?
Well, Eric, I think there's still a lot of votes to be counted. I mean, we can't call Nevada yet. It's far too early in the night. The key word is probably patience. If we wait until all of the votes have rolled in everywhere, we can start tallying up all of the things, left and right, red and blue. And until then, how can anyone make a call or a prediction? It's going to be real hard. I mean,
Chris, did you watch? I watched AEW Dynamite tonight. I think you were still watching C-SPAN or trying to keep up with what's going on over.
I didn't realize there was anything else on television. Right now. I forgot.
Well, to us Canadians, where I'm invested to a certain degree, but only what Twitter can keep me updated with. I was far more invested in Dynamite. Twitter. Well, I mean, no, not really. So that's why I chose to be focused on Dynamite tonight myself. How about you? I mean, jokes aside, did you catch the show tonight?
Yeah, staying up till 2 a.m. last night for no good fucking reason was enough for me. I tuned out today for the most part. Once I got home from work, I tuned out.
This was surprisingly a lot less pointless than the election so far. We actually got some fulfillments of things here on this episode, and it wasn't a complete waste of your time like staying up late last night.
Agreed.
We kicked off before getting to any matches and stuff like that with a little introduction with the Inner Circle, not the entire Inner Circle, but Chris Jericho with Santana and Jake Hager coming off of his big fight last week. I guess they don't enforce quarantine over at Bellator, or I'm not sure how that works, but he was able to make it all the way back to Jacksonville just fine here too. Well, showing some wear and tear from the fight, but they wanted to get over. He is still undefeated as an MMA star and kind of get over that. Like we talked about on the radio a couple weeks ago when the match was happening. I guess, like 2 weeks ago or so. So interesting to see them referencing that and be able to bring that up. Nice sort of interruption from MJF as well, sort of leading into the match, what we were going to kick off the night with.
Sammy Guevara taking on, or with Ortiz, taking on MJF and Wardlow. Got the announcement and the challenge, the gauntlet thrown down last week by the Inner Circle boys that are not interested in having MJF in the team. And I think it was a great match. I love the heel work from MJF with the biting and the scratching and the clawing, the way they cut the ring off, the way they kept on interfering with the referee to stop him being able to see what the rule breaking was going on behind his back. And the way that it impressed Jericho on commentary all night. I did really enjoy that as well.
Yeah. No, I think he's coming along, working very well in the commentary, like doing we were hearing it all night with him sort of not just putting the heels over, putting the faces over as well, but particularly in this match, I was intrigued by a lot of that stuff that he was doing, where he was sort of, quite invested in what was going on, not only putting over his Inner Circle members, but his sort of astonishment by and being impressed by Wardlow and MJF.
Yeah. And doing a good job putting over Wardlow, as well. It felt like at least as much focus on him as there was on MJF in this match. Again, another great performance by him. He shows off some really great athleticism for a guy his size. Deceptively fast and definitely strong. I love the F10 move. It looks devastating when he throws that off. Mm-hmm. I didn't like Jericho saying, "Oh, he landed right on his knee," like completely no-selling it with the commentary. But, maybe that was partially because it's a Brock move and that was a slam at Brock as much as anything. I don't know.
Maybe,
There was a lot of insidery terms being thrown around tonight, particularly by Jericho. Did you notice that tonight as well, or?
Maybe when we get to them, for sure, nothing stands out to me in particular. But I mean, other than when they were getting to the young boy stuff in the Trent Miro match, but other than that, nothing in particular stood out. But
he specifically said about selling moves in the Private Party and Young Bucks match, and then in the main event he talked about the bad bump the guy that Cody took going over the rope. It was just a few times that he's dropping these insider-esque terms that some people like.
It's not usually dropped on commentary for sure. So
exactly, it sounds a little out of place and a little marky. I don't know, but
no, I could. Yeah, I'm gonna say I didn't catch it, but I could certainly see where if I had, it probably would have triggered me the same way, because even you saying it now, it affects me the same way. It's not something you would hear on commentary. I don't mind if you and I say that, if you hear it on other people like us in this sort of discussion scenario, but yeah, like it's not something you particularly hear on commentary, them using those terms and stuff like that. So
I thought he was really channeling a 1980s Vince McMahon too. Look at this! Look at this! Look at this! He must have said it 50 times tonight. It was very old school, but I think that's part of the energy that he tries to bring to the commentary desk.
Yeah.
Something that it would be very hard for Excalibur to ramp himself up to that kind of level as a babyface commentator.
Yeah, like Shivani gets amps, but it's not quite in the same way, right? Like, so
sure, he keeps an even keel
kind of energy. So
yeah, Jericho just the way he just managed to amp. It was like listening to Shane McMahon, and for the couple years that he tried commentary desk,
right? Yeah,
but Jericho makes it work.
Yeah, we're running a little short of different phrases or whatever to sort of mix things up a bit there, but maybe that comes from not being on the booth as much, but we've got more of it over the quarantine times and that kind of stuff. So not so much as of late, but nice to hear him back on the commentary booth. And we leaning into the end of this matchup, we get what the commentators originally thought was Serpentico, and I think this is like the second or third time someone has been wearing the Serpentico mask and not been Serpentico, and I think this one was the most obvious. Like, Matt Hardy does not look like Serpentico. I think Sammy Guevara was probably the one who pulled it off the closest for the longest, like, a period of time, but it was pretty blatant and pretty obvious that the masked competitor hanging out on the side of the ring was definitely not Serpentico. It was Matt Hardy, who had taken Sammy Guevara kind of out of this matchup and allowed Ortiz to be caught by MJF in the salt of the earth and had to tap out, allowing them to get the victory. Some sort of hot dogging from them afterwards, and then a big sort of attack on Chris Jericho as well, which got a big Cheshire smile out of Chris Jericho, as he was very impressed by the aggression side of MJF.
Sure. Yeah, I think that was exactly the story for this stuff, right? Is we get more of the real things going into Full Gear now versus the song and dance routine, the town hall from last week. This was the physical go home spot. I liked it. I thought it was a good wrap up to the story going into the pay-per-view on the weekend. I really like the way they worked on Ortiz's arm through the match, setting out for the Fujiwara armbar. I thought that was great. So no, kudos. Not the speed and the pace that we're used to in the opener. It was a tag, which going back to that, but I didn't really think about it until we saw the Bucks on the private party match later in the night, that in another day, another month of the AEW programming, that would have been our opener. They seem to have gone to a template for a while, and it seems like we've gone to a different template for a little bit here. Yeah, for sure. Maybe they don't want to maybe fall into a particular a setting, so they want to maybe switch it up here and there, but it's hard not to be triggered by the other amazing tag openers that we've got, by this sort of feeling a little bit slower. I don't know if it was just the fact that Sammy and Ortiz aren't a typical team together. I thought Sammy was impressive in his moments in the ring when he got to sort of have comeback moments and that kind of stuff featured here. They were certainly more playing the faces, which was nice to see, that you can see that side of them in the ring here at least. So I enjoyed those aspects of this match, and certainly setting MJ up for the match at Full Gear, and nice to see a win for Wardlow as well, coming off the loss last week. One of the more impressive Sammy outings. Like, he got to show himself, he got to do some moves, he got to showcase some stuff. Plus, he got to play a bit the Sammy character up still. So I thought this was a decent match for him and a decent match for everybody involved. I liked it. Nope, for sure. Tony Schiavone sat down with Kenny Olivier in the Kenny's house set. It's not even my dog. It's not my house. I guess this was the first fourth wall breaking of the night bit, but this was fine because it was setting the tone for what Kenny has become. So arrogant in the world of pro wrestling that his mind has gone past that now, that he is this good. And, I should have had buys to the final. Why did he even make me wrestle these matches? Yeah. Any other sport in the world, that's what we would have done. But I did it because it was the right thing to do. And now I'm going to win because I'm Kenny Omega and I don't fucking lose a tournament.
Yeah.
Which, stands to reason as far as I'm concerned too.
Yeah, no, I think just another sort of level in this heel Kenny Omega thing. Again, it's like a slow feed and build that we've been getting over the progression of this story being told, and this was just sort of another page as you return and getting ready for that climactic end here, where he's like definitely getting a little bit more overboard again with the sort of being so oblivious, it seems, to certain aspects of things, and so arrogant and narrow-minded as well, but for good reason, as well as he explains. So no, I think some nice elements at play here leading into the story between him and Hangman. And yeah, I'm curious whose house I guess he's hanging out in Florida. Like my feed was like, it slowly got better over the night, but earlier on it was quite like sort of fuzzy and stuff like that. So I couldn't make out who like was on the pictures and stuff like that in the background. I wondered if those were like teases that sort of like there's been a lot of talk of Kenny with these new introductions and stuff like that, that there's sort of maybe seeds layered into those as to what maybe the further story of Kenny Omega is going to be and stuff like that. So I wondered if, they certainly don't do anything by accident, at least in their stories. So if there were elements at play there, I'm sure they will come to fruition when we get to that match. But moving on in the night, we had mentioned it a little earlier, but we'll get to a full sort of blow by blow of it here with Trent taking on Miro in his first singles competition in AEW. What did you make of this matchup?
It was fine. It was fine. I loved the couple of suplexes that Miro gave. JR noted on the first one, there was the belly to back, scoop up and drop suplex. But as he dropped, he put some spin on the go down.
Yeah.
And it was a thrust on with the back move that you don't see. Reminiscent a little bit of Kurt Angle when he first showed up, and it looked like he was delivering his suplexes with some real snap of venom, like he was actually fighting for a gold medal again. You're like, no, you're not really trying to break anybody's fucking neck here, Kurt. So I thought that looked fantastic, and I liked the little bit of storyline up front with I used to be your young boy. Yeah, you were my young boy. You remember carrying my bags? Drove you around. You drove me one time. I thought that was neat. I like that stuff more than I like the shit with the arcade unit being smashed.
True, yeah. I think that whole interview package is unfortunate. Again, they're always kind of limited with time here with Dynamite.
Yeah.
But that if you caught it on, I think I don't even know if they played it on Dark in its entirety, but it was on their social media and it was on YouTube and stuff like that. This little 6-7 minute interview that Excalibur did with the two of them, and it's a really neat sort of back and forth. You tell it's very uncandid or like unscripted, very candid in that sense, that they're sort of they have elements that they maybe want to touch on, but they're definitely implying their past and that kind of stuff, which I think definitely is what led to a better matchup here. I think for me, that was all I needed for the match too. Like, I think that kind of lead in, it didn't need all the extra stuff. There was too much going on with the best friends and Kip Sabian at first on the outside.
I'm glad they cleared that out to the back.
Chased off, but it just was so distracting from what was Miro's first singles match, where it was like, okay, again, it was like, and then in the fact that they did it twice, like it was the Kip one, and then they did the Orange Cassidy Penelope one. It was like, well, does Miro really need distraction stuff in his matches? Like, I don't think so. We're here to see Miro have a singles match, and everything that was happening in the ring, I was very like intrigued by and wanted to be captivated by and invest my intrigue in. But everything outside kept that. Not that I didn't enjoy it. I thought the Penelope spot was funny and the orange stuff was good, but it was distracting from what I thought was going to be a really good singles match, which they still had, but it just had too much of this outside stuff for me.
No, totally agree. I'm starting to feel like the best intro and beginning for Miro would have been intro him as they have, right, and bring him out as the best man. That's the gimmick. But I think I'd have held off on an in-ring debut until after he fucks Kip Sabian and steals his wife at the wedding,
right?
And then go into he's the bad guy with Penelope and Kip is your new baby face, and that would have been his first feud. Then there is no distraction. You got no run-ins. You got nothing else. The matches I'm watching are the matches I'm supposed to be watching. Because I think that was seems to be that that's the plan for his first storyline still. I don't understand why this is the grouping and this was his introduction if that isn't where it's headed.
Yeah, very true.
Just a lazy way to intro into the crowd otherwise. So, but a great opening story, but it's just felt a little bit deflated with the way that, as you say, there's a hodgepodge of stuff going on, and I don't know where my focus is supposed to lie. And I really wanted to use this as a measuring stick for where Miro is 8-9 months out of the ring now in individual competition.
Yeah,
he's definitely got a different look to him. He has slimmed down, like waistline wise. You can see that he's a smaller build. He doesn't look smaller up top, but there is something less intimidating about not having the hair and that greased slick look that he had when he first broke in. So I kind of get where WWE were pissed that he cut his hair now.
He had lost that like in the Rusev days too, right? Like he hasn't had long hair for quite some time.
He did that on purpose. He cut his own hair because he was feeling like they weren't using him enough in WWE.
Yeah.
So he cut it, and they were fucking furious that he did it because he spoiled the look. And now that you see him in the smaller guys, I'm like, yeah, I see what they mean. You don't look as intimidating, as threatening as you did when you first debuted. That doesn't ruin anything or kill anything. Just an observation. And I loved the belly to belly suplex out of the headlock that he pulled off on him. I think he's some of his stuff looked excellent. And then some of it it took away from it that it was such a long match. I get they don't want to put a squash on Trent.
Yeah.
But I'm less impressed by the man than if he manhandled and dominated his way to a victory, right?
Yeah, I mean, fair. Yeah, maybe if he needed a proper, he's had like, I guess this was his singles debut. He's only had like the team matches and
tag, right?
More squashy in the tag stuff. So maybe an enhancement match before this upper echelon like a singles match would have been a little bit more impressive. But again, like I mean, you can't do too many of those. It's hard to say. We didn't get any of them tonight though, so maybe this would have been a better.
Oh, we got one.
I guess we did with no, you're right. So yeah, maybe that would have been a dip. Yeah, I don't know. I do see what you're saying though. There's certainly a better way to get him over there, but I did like a bit more of the back and forth because the story was there. Obviously there's history between these two, and they wanted to lean into some of that, and him overcoming this sort of sort of person from his past and stuff like that. I enjoyed that story they were able to sort of touch on and tell.
Like I said, I like that more than I had the smashing the arcade unit by accident, and that made them furious. The guys who were coming over as baby faces to a degree before that happened. The only other thing that I wanted to mention, and it was the great recovery off of the fucking botch spot off the ropes. Like, they got to stop putting oil on the ropes or their boots or something.
Well,
man, there's too many slips.
Right? The way they were talking about it and the way
that's them saving it. They saved it after the fact.
No, to me it looked like it looked super intentional. Trent looked like the way Penelope got out of the way so that the camera guy could be in the exact position, and then when he jumped off, I was watching everybody because I thought Penelope was going to interfere, and then the camera guy got right in position so that it looked like Trent was stumbling off the thing, and then they cut to the other camera, and then he hit the ground. It was like that was like
I don't know.
I mean, go back and maybe rewatch it, but
I think that's where you'd want to be as the cameraman to catch the move happening. It just so happens that it went that way.
Well, I mean, but Excalibur was so quick on the fact that he was like, well, all it took was one slip for Trent, and he was able to get the move in. Well, then what else was supposed to take place? Trent was supposed to jump off into just the kick?
Jump into the kick, yeah.
I think it was the
he stumbled, he stood up, and he took the kick. Dude, they've had a lot of practice in the last 4 weeks of having to catch on the fly on commentary when there's a botch on a rope spot. So I think they just, tonight, they nailed it.
Also had a ton of botches in a while, and that they have a very, very good wrestler in there that can pull off making a sloppy move. I don't know. I would say if you have time, go back and give it a second rewatch.
I will.
What other people have to say, but that was my take on it. Was Trent purposely slipped? But
will we go with? I'll rewatch it. Will we agree that our tiebreaker will be Matthew? If he includes it in 422, it was a botch. If he doesn't, you're right, and it was a planned spot.
Fair enough. Yeah, I guess we'll wait and see. Yeah, I won't argue with Matthew. I can't argue with him. All right, moving on. We had another interview package. It was Hangman Page this time with JR. certainly a different demeanor out of Hangman Page than we got out of Kenny earlier on. Hangman trying to put on a bold face here, but certainly JR was prodding a little bit more out of him.
Yeah, I agree with Jericho's observation later in the night. This is JR's spot, right? We've said this. Get him off the booth. Just have him do these. One a night, one a week, two a week like this for a big match going into the go home. Fantastic. I love the way that you prodded him. Said, you look nervous. That's not your first glass today. That kind of stuff is great.
Yeah.
And it sets up Page's response. I'd expected it to be not the drunk Hangman or the drinking Hangman. I thought we'd see a more reflective, I've worked for this now, and I think he's taking me lightly Hangman. And instead, we're seeing a Hangman that's almost cut away from what Kenny's becoming. It's abstract to him what Omega's going through right now. He's still just thinking about himself and his own position with the team as it was and his position with the Elite. And I flubbed an opportunity at the world title. This is my next chance at it. It's almost secondary. Well, it's almost like he hasn't even noticed that Omega's taking him for granted and taking him lightly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's like, there's a lot at play as to what's like going to affect him when we eventually get there on Saturday and the outcome of that match, like where he talked about how this is the closest he'd been to the title ever since declaring himself as wanting to be the very first AEW champion like over a year ago. The fact that like he had worked really hard in this tournament, but seeing Kenny on the other side, he always knew it was just going to be the two of them at the very end, and that like getting there, he just wants to kick his ass, and then he kind of get called out on that by JR, and then at first he's just sort of like, well, I have to, because if I don't, I don't know what else I have left other than this glass of bourbon. So I mean, it really just comes down to that, and they kind of like lean into a little bit of that in the video package later on. So yeah, I think I like that there's a lot of elements at play in this, not more so than just the title. There's friendship, there's your place in AEW, there's your place in the rankings, your place in singles competition, all kinds of elements at work here, which I'm so hyped for this match.
Oh yeah, it's a rich tapestry.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's Taz with his boys, Brian Cage, fabulous Ricky Starks. It was great. I thought this was a really good spot from Taz.
Yeah, he's good in those kind of like shooty type scenarios when they just have him straight to the camera or whatever. Like, oh, I'm sort of forced into this situation. I tried to do this the civilized way and talk to the boss here, and they tell me he's too busy with the people that are going to be busy on the card this weekend. But hey, my guys have all these rankings, all these have all these accolades and wins and stuff like that in AEW, but they're not part of your rankings right now. What's going on? Why aren't we being considered for stuff? Saying that there'll be a FTW type presence at Full Gear. No, I certainly a different way to sort of make sure you're still thinking about Team Taz.
I gotta believe it's going to be the Cody Darby Allin match they get involved in. It's Darby that's been the name on the tip of their tongues for the last several weeks.
Yeah.
So along with Will Hobbs, but Hobbs isn't on the card. So I'm expecting Hobbs to join them. I find this would be very flat if this is for Will Hobbs to say no and lead into something as a feud with him without having been seeing him on Dynamite repeatedly, right? So.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it obviously seems like that's the only person that they sort of have any sort of gears to grind with is either Cody or Darby, especially. So more than likely, some sort of appearance at least of them at ringside or something like that during that matchup. So, but yeah, I think this was a nice appearance from them. I like the more and more so these references to Tony Khan. I know at first with AEW they said that they never wanted to sort of talk about Tony on the show, especially like reference having an authority figure of sorts type thing. But it just shows how important it is. Every wrestling has it to a degree, right? And whether it's Scott D'Amore in Impact, or it's fucking the Vince and the McMahon family and
Adam Pearce, you mean?
Or Adam Pearce, sorry, of course. No, he's not an authority figure. They don't have authority figures because
we're the authority on Raw.
Fans are so tired of authority figures, right? Of course. My confusion, terrible my confusion there. But no, sometimes it can be important. You don't see it often on Ring of Honor, but they talk a lot about the upper brash and things like that. And to me, I feel like it certainly lends to the cadence of the real sport aspect, which helped a lot of this stuff tonight.
We're in a world now where it's not the 80s wrestling anymore, where coming out to the ring is this guy and this guy, where you can just accept as a fan that here's a night of matches that have been booked for my entertainment by nobody on the whim of who. Because we've broken that fourth wall already. I think it's too hard to get back behind. The best you can do is like what a Ring of Honor does, with where you're mentioning this casual, or maybe like WCW back in the day with the championship committee has declared so-and-so the number one contender, right? We had this fantasy. It was the booking team.
In early AEW, they always just said the EVPs or the whoever.
Yeah, but
matches stuff, but everyone knows who they are.
Yeah, so we knew who they were.
It's too muddled, right? So yeah, I think because of that muddled situation, that's why they needed a different figure.
It almost forced their hand.
Yeah.
And we all knew Tony Khan, this wasn't like, again, WWF for how many years? Vince McMahon was just a commentator. The average fan had no idea Vince was the owner of the company until Montreal Screwjob happened. Yeah. So, right, there was difference. Everybody knew Tony Khan was backstage. Yeah. And he was the money, at least. I think it became nobody knew he had such influence on the booking side of things until probably more recently than within the last 4 to 6 months. That's kind of come out to more to light that he actually is the booker and in the booking, right, rather than
I think it's still so muddled, right? I think it always just comes down like nothing's really official. Like, I mean, Kenny's booking the women. That's what a lot of people say still, and it's like but some stuff is still booked by the Bucks and by Christopher Daniels and by Cody as well and stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of, I don't want to say too many cooks in the kitchen, but again, there's not like a singular booker, it seems, right? Like, but maybe Tony is the final say, or maybe not. Maybe that's why it's more open and why certain things are better than others. We'll sort of get to that as we continue with our blow by blow. But yeah, let's not settle too much here on Tony Khan. I'll have to end up putting a picture of him here between us. And that's too much work. We're moving on because the next matchup tonight, it was Private Party having another match with the Young Bucks. A little surprised to hear the announcement of this matchup, but once you kind of got the play out of it, I sort of understood why they had it a little bit more. How did you feel about it?
No, I totally agree. I think then Hardy coming out with them at the start, you knew that was just fodder for Sammy to come out and get rid of Matt, which it was. And then the match itself was, for me, this erased a lot of the shitty stuff I've seen the last couple of weeks and put the story back on track and back on focus with the Bucks and FTR, Kenny and Hangman's involvement in that, Matt working injured, how that's going to affect them, how it nearly affected them tonight, how it will affect them going into Saturday now because the injury got exacerbated during the match, regardless of FTR getting to re-smash it or not at the end. Yeah. So this checked a lot of boxes for me. I really liked it.
No, I think, for me too, I think the bigger picture story-wise, it was good to sort of reestablish them. Again, they've been sort of on this sort of teetering path before getting here with the sort of attacking random people and all that kind of stuff. And then, being a little bit more focused in again on the leg injury, and then that being the focus of this match, them taking the risk to take the match so close to the big title match at Full Gear. Also, like the elements of the leg and how much it played into this match in particular. And I don't know if it was just like, again, I tend to in my head always try to look future book, or I'm always curious where they're going with stuff, if I've missed something, or if I'm like, where where's this story, what's really going on here sometimes. And there's elements that have been always at play that I don't know if I've just been, it always just like it seems like it's there, but it's maybe I've just been ignorant to it because I'm not necessarily wanting it for sure. But again, there were subtle elements of it in this as well that I'm curious about. That is the story that's eventually going to be told when we get there on Saturday, is that it's Matt's leg, obviously, that costs them maybe the match, and then it's Nick that gives up on Matt and joins Kenny. And then that's the story they've been telling, because I've tried to think back to when Kenny and Hangman had their sort of split after the title split, and then when Kenny was talking to the Bucks saying, no, you guys got to come with me or you got to stay. One of them was definitely more willing to go than the other, and I think it was Nick.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And Matt was more trepidatious, and he's been more trepidatious in other things than Nick has. Nick was obviously more and more upset with Matt with putting the stipulation on the line that they can't go for the tag belts, putting like his leg on the line in this matchup so often and stuff like that. And if that, eventually gets to Nick, I could see that being the story they're telling. And I know my head was too, caught up in that I was just enjoying the match outside of, or enjoying the story. Now I was like, oh, if that's where they're going, now I'm not as upset by some of the other elements that were at play here. So we'll have to see what happens on Saturday.
I think that's a great way of going with it. If you're right, that's fantastic. It definitely for me, it just erased what felt like some lack of direction and a real feeling that there was some sense of they didn't know what they were doing with the Bucks at that moment. And now it feels like that's either gone and forgotten about, or as you say, can come back into play now because it's this slight thing that happened within the team itself. Like, as you say, it's gone from the Hangman Kenny thing. There's been a lot of weird stuff. It makes sense.
Yeah, even if it goes back to the super kicks, it was Matt that was doing all the super kicks to people, and it could be like, "Hey, man, like that's not what I want." Like, you could eventually get this side, the story from Matt that we haven't. Like we've always been saying, there's this other shoe that hasn't dropped in this story that we've been waiting for. That and maybe that is what it is. I don't want to, I don't want to predict it sometimes because I like when it's just told to me, but I don't know. I'm seeing elements of that being what could potentially be what's at play. And I think initially I was very trepidatious with that because I don't want to see the Young Bucks break up, but I could totally see that being the big story they wanted to tell going into some big new company and all this focus on them being like, well, yeah, we're not going to be tag champs for a long time. We're even going to break up within the first year. And we're going to tell the proper story of us splitting up, not like the Generation Me stuff or whatever from TNA and that kind of thing, right? So who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But still, I think more so excited though for the Full Gear match than I was a few weeks ago, for sure.
Yeah, got me back into it. Then we had the best Jon Moxley promo I have ever seen.
Yeah, and comes down to both partners as well. I think. It was Eddie amping him up. I think it comes off that element of it as well, and the fuel behind these two. But yes, what we're talking about, we had a face-to-face between Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. Big stipulation here, they couldn't get physical or the match on Sunday wouldn't happen, which I think definitely led to, again, better promos, because all those other times you would normally get that close to someone's face and get, talking about someone's mom and things like that, you tend to get, smacked around a little bit, but they weren't allowed to do that kind of stuff. And it certainly led to a lot of intensity. And yeah, I would certainly agree. Eddie Kingston brought the best out of Jon Moxley here for sure.
He does. I think so much more fun.
Whoever's booking all this sees that, and they know that there was just plenty more to tell here. And John is just so happy to play in this sandbox with Eddie. And I cannot wait to see how emotional and crazy that I Quit match gets. Like, as much as we just got one like last Sunday with Roman and Jay, I think this, like we talked about on the radio too, is going to be the same but different in a total different type of emotion and physical sense. So very, very excited for that. And then something they'd sort of hyped everyone up for, which was an interesting sort of video package. We finally heard from the bastard Pac.
Yeah, neat little Pac.
Yeah,
like video package as well as Pac himself.
Yes.
I like I thought the isolation crazy bit and then all the packs floating up around the room, I thought that was neat. Yeah. Good. He's a great talker. We know that. Great engaging with the crowd and just as good on a video like that. So no, really looking forward to him coming back.
Yeah, I'd sort of when they had made that announcement on Twitter and stuff like that earlier in the week, or like on the weekend and stuff like that Pac, you were going to hear from him this week. I'd assumed it was just going to be video package and all that kind of stuff, and they weren't going to just have him be there and all that kind of stuff. I did like in the video that it had element, like he was obviously watching Dynamite, and then that was what was kind of making him crazy. You could hear the Kingston promo in the background referencing him and that kind of stuff with the family and whatnot. And that was like, yeah, when we were first getting the Kingston Moxley promo, I thought maybe that was what the end of it was going to be, them being interrupted by Pac and him sort of, you know, staking his claim right there at the top of the heap type deal.
Yeah.
Not necessarily what we got, but I still think very interesting and fun to hear from Pac finally. And vignettes are always fun. We don't get a ton of them in AEW, so I think that it's nice to not have too much of a good thing, and that makes them feel special and cool when you get them. I think maybe I'm gonna say I watch too much wrestling sometimes. I'll admit that I watch anything they sort of feed off at me, and there were so many promos over the last couple of weeks leading up to Bound for Glory on Fight Network and everything else. And all of the video vignettes were Eric Young, split personality. He was wearing a suit and talking to himself, and he'd be in his gear. And it's all this reminded me of. And it's not Fox's fault. It's not AEW's fault. They were completely different types of promos. But again, I just watched way too much fucking wrestling. And I was just like, God, this reminds me of did the same person who filmed all that shit for Eddie or Eric Young film all this for him too? Like, but again, that's just me and my fucking warped singular wrestling mind. But
super saturation.
Super saturation.
Nothing you can do
exactly,
at this point.
Yeah. Moving on though with our blow by blow, we got a little interview with the Nightmare family as they were talking about they were going to have a match with Butcher and the Blade, but before they could talk about anything, they were interrupted by the Bunny and then attacked by Butcher and the Blade. So we're finally getting that feud. They've been building it as they can, and again, I'm fine with that being the feud. I know I kind of went off on this a few weeks ago, but it was the fact that this was the feud they were always building to. It was just the Nightmare family versus Butcher and the Blade. I'm fine with that, but why did it have to take fucking 7 months or however long the Bunny's been gone? And like, why does Brandy not give a shit? Why does and then I feel like it's a waste of the Bunny too. Like, Allie's a very good wrestler, and they were showing how good of a wrestler she was in the ring, and now she's just back to being a distraction. And like, they're not showing that she's also a wrestler in the family. Like, Eddie's not bringing her out for female matches and stuff like that. She's just completely gone from the women's division. So I feel like it's so much more of a loss and a hindrance, not only to Butcher and the Blade, because they don't need an extra person. They showed that in the time that she was gone.
Yeah.
That's maybe just my problems with it, but it is what it is. At least they're doing something with it.
No, I agree. It's kind of feels like hashtag missed opportunities or wasted opportunities along the way, and they've just kind of bundled things together and couldn't come up with anything new. So we'll go back to what we were going to do with this. We've kind of laid groundwork. We've kind of filled in some blanks now over the weeks, months. But yeah, I'm with you. There's no interest or excitement in this at this point. So
no.
Speaking of no interest and excitement, we had Nyla Rose took on Red Velvet.
Yes, this was it's kind of hard to give this any more time than AEW seems to want to give it any more time. So, I mean,
out of this whole segment, which really was just to be a bit of build for Nyla versus Shida on the weekend, Red Velvet came out of this whole thing looking best, and I'm including Guerrero in that.
Right.
So,
yeah. No, she's been very impressive on Dark. Eventually teaming up with Brandy now recently as well. But yeah, a young but very impressive female talent that they're definitely using and utilizing very well. She took some great bumps and sold very well for Nyla. They obviously had sort of worked out some very good stuff here. But yeah, her sort of like sneakiness was very nice in this match as well, and her speed. I enjoyed a lot of that. And but yeah, I think this the complaint everyone sort of has is there's just no build for her and Hikaru Shida. Vicky did her best to sort of get something out of it at the end because it's Vicky and you can kind of get intrigued, but it's sort of grasping at straws at this point. There's not a ton of action going on, and then it goes back to the too much wrestling shit. I'm distracted by all the other amazing women they have in the crowd that I'm just like, why the fuck aren't they being utilized? Like, they talk about her later on and she wasn't in the crowd for these stuff, but like I'm so glad that they're using Allison Kay. Like, she just became a free agent, and like interesting that they're using her in the AEW or the NWA match, even though she just recently left the NWA, but that's a whole different story. But I mean, the person she took on at Bloodsport and beat her to win the whole Bloodsport was there in the crowd. I'm like, why aren't they using her? Like, she must be in a dark match or something coming up soon. Like, Lindsay Snow, she's fucking amazing. And like, I'm just like, you see her just like standing there in the crowd. I'm like, fuck, where's the build to any of these other? Yeah. So, but that's a whole other discussion for them to just be hopefully utilizing women more. And maybe that's something they're hopefully going to be doing down the road. But yeah, this match didn't have a ton of build going into it. I think we also talked about it on the radio, which I think would have definitely played in better here. This should have been a big fatal 4-way just to have more women featured so you could have more eyes. And thinking about the match, having Big Swole and Britt Baker included in this, I think would not have hurt it whatsoever. Sometimes the fatal 4-way can be distracting, and I think in this, it wouldn't have been at all.
Yeah, it's just too little too late for my blood. I even don't feel like, and I get it, Vicky Guerrero is an established character. We know Vicky, but they haven't done much to establish Vicky in AEW. I mean, this is maybe her second time with a mic that I've seen on Dynamite.
Right.
She might have been doing stuff on Dark that I haven't been seeing, but you know, she didn't even say excuse me once to her. Like,
she said in Chinese.
Oh, except in Chinese. Okay. That's why Jericho. Oh yeah, now I get it. So it was lost on me. And yeah, I want more. I don't know. It was like Vicky Guerrero light when she was going over talking to Shida. And she hasn't been grating on my nerves on a week after week basis, which is why excuse me was the fucking most hated word in wrestling, because she said it 18 times a week, right?
Yeah.
You always got Vicky rammed down your throat. That's why you get the heat from these little doses of, it's like, hey, Vicky Guerrero, I haven't seen you in a while. I'm actually happy to see her. That's not the reaction you're supposed to be getting out of her at this point.
Yeah, true. Maybe
it's not her fault
to put the belt back on Nyla, and then you can get all that crazy.
Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why we're going with the Nyla getting the belt back route, is so that Vicky can come out with her every week and get that heel magnet shit going again.
Yeah.
And build that. But I think I just more agree with you in general that I want to see any of the girls. Just let's focus on the women's division as a division as opposed to a one match a night filler.
More of them. I mean, that was the argument from like Raw like so long ago, right? Where they were just like, they give them one match, it's the piss break, it's the match you give the least shit about, and then their easiest correction for that was like, even though they don't tend to give that much more of a shit about it, they just give them 2 matches a night rather than one. And like but it's that much better when they give them 2 fucking matches and they give them backstage stuff, and that'd be that much better on Dynamite if they gave that there was one extra segment tonight with 2 other girls for something else for you to think about and have them featured. The women's division would be just that much more, you know, included. But it's hard to think about where you fit it in. But
tonight, for example, you could have pulled the Team Oompa Loompa bit out and had a women's match in there that's just as long as the Nyla Velvet match was.
Yeah.
Right, and you'd lose. I get it. Taz isn't going to be happy, and they're not only we're not on the pay-per-view, we don't get to do the bit on the go home show, but how we're not on the pay-per-view. Fuck. But you know, if you're going to sacrifice anything in a go home show when you don't want to lose the segment, that would have been the bit you could have quashed, right? But no, I get it. 2 hours.
They are building, and they have a good women's division. They're just not showcasing them, and that's what comes down next. And it comes down to whose time is most important. And when they don't show them, it makes them feel like an afterthought, and they shouldn't have to feel that way. So hopefully we get a little bit more out of them. I still think these two will hopefully put on a very good match. I think their first one was surprisingly good. So I'm sure we'll get something like that as well at Full Gear. But we got another one of these locker room breakdowns. We passed over this one earlier, but so we'll sort of lump them both together here. But this was sort of the locker room kind of giving their breakdown and predictions for the 2 big kind of elite matches for Full Gear, as we will say. Earlier it was the tag match with FTR and the Young Bucks. Before the Young Bucks matchup, everyone sort of giving their predictions. Locker room sort of 50-50 there. And then we got one here with some people giving their take on Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. And definitely the biggest sort of take from all this, hey, fucking Don Callis. Just gotta love seeing him popping his head up wherever the fuck he wants in AEW. Well, usually only when it does with Kenny Omega or Chris Jericho, it seems.
Yeah, that is neat bits. I like these kind of backstage segment promo stuff.
Yeah.
More than
that and the lead in.
Two guys smashing each other.
Yeah, the lead into the video package, and I mean, got to check the record books and all of the history of pro wrestling, but is this got to be the first video package that's cut to a Cinderella song? Like, oh my god. Had to mark out a little bit for that. I'm like, oh my god, they went so sappy for this.
Yeah. That was pretty funny.
Don't know what you got until it's gone. Like, oh, just heart clenching River Radio, deep cut romantic tunes there from Cinderella. So you were certainly getting your heartstrings tugged at, letting you know that this Kenny Omega Hangman Page match is going to be quite the clash, man. A ton of fantastic matchups at Full Gear. I cannot wait for Saturday. All night wasn't necessarily focused on getting you hyped for Full Gear, but the little things that did fucking got me super, super amped for it.
Yeah. Oh, I think as a go home show goes, I thought did its job perfectly.
Yeah.
Set up all the matches for the weekend, like all of the main events. Highlight on all the guys that you're supposed to be highlighting on.
Either, where they were like on commentary. Oh, you're gonna see everybody tonight's on Full Gear as well, but it was just you got it subtly all night.
They're much more subtle, exactly. So then the main event for the evening: Colt Cabana, John Silver, and 10 from the Dark Order taking on Cody Rhodes. Jericho dropping the full name too on commentary. You caught that, right?
I did, yes.
The Gun Club.
He had a lot of slips. He was calling Trent Beretta too, and had to pull back on that. So.
Arn Anderson came out with him as well.
Yes.
Good match. I thought Austin Gunn came over better in this debut than Dominic Mysterio did in his Raw in-ring debut, or
for sure
Survivor Series debut, I guess.
Yeah, this is definitely a cadence to like how great Dark is for something like this. Him and Billy have been able to put on or have great matches there, and not underneath the limelight and all that kind of stuff of Dynamite and that kind of stuff. So to finally have them team up there with Cody and be utilized very well in this 6-man tag, I thought was great. Yeah, they've been able to build Austin not only on the outside there, so people know who he is, now get him in the ring and get to see what he can do. So not get in there with a really green performance. He's been able to sort of shake off a bit of that early stuff working with people on Dark. So I thought that led into this really well. I enjoyed the match. I think overall my mind was sort of filtering to other places in the sense of like, as commentary, we're sort of commenting on Cody's had like a busy couple of weeks or whatever, and they didn't really talk about the Orange feud. And I'm just sort of like, I mean, I would agree that it's been a wasted kind of 3 weeks. I don't really know what the Orange feud really was. It didn't do much for Orange. It didn't really do much for Cody either to turn him any different from the Brody thing. And then in hindsight, you see two people and more with the Dark Order, that was where Cody should have been focused over the last few weeks. Like if he had a TNT title match with John Silver, who they were obviously trying to push more, if he had a TNT title match with Colt Cabana, they had all the reasons in the world to be in there trying to win something back for the Dark Order and for Mr. Brody, prove something to Mr. Brody. So I feel like maybe that's just obviously good booking is a lot easier in hindsight and that kind of stuff, and maybe they were in a pinch trying to do something a little different there, but no, it seemed like a missed opportunity. We mentioned that a few times tonight.
Yeah, the hindsight again, I think, is the 2020 on that one. I think it was probably Cody versus Orange. Let's capitalize on, we've put Orange into this main event scene, let's solidify that. He's a main eventer because he's fighting Cody Rhodes for the title on Dynamite in a main event. And I don't know if it could have been the main event if it's John Silver. It could have been if it's Colt Cabana, I think.
Yeah.
So I tend to agree that I don't know that there was much storyline purpose for that, if that was just to try to put on a match, or just maybe even to see if is Orange over. Like, has it worked with what we've done with Jericho?
Right.
Is he main event level now? We'll put him in a couple main events and see how that reacts with crowd and whatever else.
Oh no, like I get it, like in that sort of like sense, but I'm just thinking like overall story now. Like if he's just moving
you're right.
Something with John and Cody's moving on to Darby, well then he should have just sort of kind of finalized thing with the Dark Order here. for now, and been doing that over the few weeks. They didn't have a reason not to be trying to get into those spots, and especially again, it's hindsight booking, but something they could have been doing with Colt. Like he'd been trying or been so teetering on the fence, because you were getting a lot of that in this match. The sort of heel tendencies were coming out more from Colt, and again, if we were getting more layers of that in singles competition or something like that, I just would have been, I think it would just been more helpful for Colt and for John and some of those Dark Order members. And I think that's where Cody's more utilized now. If he's not in a big feud, helping to get some of those guys up, I think would have been better than just testing Orange, right? I think they could have saved that for any time. He could have just been sitting with the heat of the Jericho thing for a fair bit until they wanted to really pull that trigger. So,
well, then by the end of the show, it's some of this clusterfuckery again. We've got the Dark Order there, but is it Cody thereafter? Is it Orange thereafter? Cody's yelling at Darby Allin, and it's them that have the match. But Taz, Brian Cage, and Ricky Starks are mad at Darby Allin and also Cody a bit now. Like, I feel like the TNT title match is ended for a giant overbooked finish of run-ins and distractions and interferences and whatever, and we see a no finish in that now. Where I was leading to Darby winning it, I'm leaning now to that being just a dismissed thing where we end up on the next Dynamite with Cody teaming with Darby to go up against 2 or 3 other guys in a mismatch.
No, I can certainly see where it would have those sort of clusterfuck feels. To me, it was more of the like all that stuff happening and then Cody kind of saving the show a little bit. I enjoyed that promo he cut on Darby at the very end.
Oh yeah, the promo was great to finish.
I liked it, how it focused, it felt on him and Darby, something we haven't necessarily got because their feud. Again, it was already sort of set in stone that Darby was getting this spot, and Cody's now able to focus on Darby because he's, had to go through all this other stuff. That's maybe where my head was at, where like, okay, then Cody should have just been focusing on the Dark Order, not being mixed up with Orange Cassidy and all that. It was just too many cooks in the kitchen, too many, pots on the fire at that point, where he could have just been a little bit more streamlined and focused in Dark Order stories, help them get their stories over as well. The stuff with Colt joining or not, choosing one way or not to go over there, helping to push John Silver as well, and then allowing Cody to focus on Colt or on Darby here as well. So I kind of hope it's not full of a bunch of stuff, especially pay-per-view. They tend to hopefully keep a lot of that stuff out of there, but we'll have to wait and see when we get to Full Gear. I mean, AEW's had a pretty decent track record of no sort of interference too much,
particularly not for a finish.
Yeah, especially in finishes afterwards to drive story and that kind of stuff. I could certainly see things playing out, but I think the one thing we could definitely agree on, we are in for a very long night on Saturday. But enjoyable.
Oh no, it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to the show for sure. The Tonight show was great for me. I thought this was checked all the boxes as far as a go home show should. I had no problem with this. I really enjoyed it. It got me more looking forward to the pay-per-view on the weekend. That's your only job with the last show of free TV going into that thing. So
yeah, for sure.
Kudos, guys. I think they nailed it.
Yeah, especially if it was a last-minute thing to move the silver match in Orange to the main card, which I think people would enjoy anyway. Mm-hmm. It was nice to help get Silver. Not only he had a win on Dark last night, he gets a win, or not a win, but gets a push here and a nice showcased main event spot before going into being featured on a pay-per-view card. So I think that does plenty for him going into that. And talking about the whole card as well, it's unfortunate it didn't get talked about very much because the person who got the fucking card to mention this when they went over the Full Gear card was old fucking JR, and had to fucking stumble over the match that's very intriguing. That's now the buy-in, which is the new NWA champion Serena D is going to be defending it against Alicia Kay, who was the NWA champion for quite a long time. Defended the title for quite a while. She just recently got out of her NWA contract, though. She's a free agent. So whether this is a test to see if she's going to work in AEW or not, I'm very intrigued. I think it's a talent they could very much utilize in AEW. And I kind of wish it was like Excalibur, at least, or someone got to talk about this, not JR, because he was fucking stumbling over it the whole time. He called Allison Kay the NWA champion, not Serena D. So it's just like the fucking dude can't get his goddamn facts straight. Sit him in a goddamn chair in the back with a glass of bourbon and let him talk to somebody. Get him the fuck off the commentary booths. I'm tired of it. And yeah, but we'll see how he does at Full Gear.
Yeah, that's the sad thing is I don't think he's fucking going anywhere. He likes the job. They seem to like him in this irreverent JR style. I don't enjoy it, but
yeah,
it is what it is.
It's better than Josh fucking Matthews.
It is, right? I mean, that's the thing. I still prefer it to Michael Cole, and god damn, it's better than Josh Matthews. So,
yeah.
And I felt there were points tonight that was my own with Excalibur. I'm slowly starting to like that guy more and more and more every week. And I felt like there were times tonight where he seemed like he was sad or withdrawn, and you felt like he was the lost voice in the booth because Jericho was there as well. And JR was playing off more of his shtick because Jericho's there, and he got some confidence from that. Shivani's just being Shivani.
Yeah.
And Excalibur seemed like the guy who didn't have a place anymore tonight. And I was genuinely like, well, you guys shut up and let him fucking talk. And like, yeah, 6 months ago, I'd been like, good, fuck off, Excalibur, you masked prick. But now it's like, oh.
No, I think the four-man booth does not work. I think no one's ever said that it has. There's been subtle moments that it works in a match where certain people could just shut the fuck up and chime in when they need to and whatever. But it's obviously a clusterfuck. If they were going to have, Jericho out there, either do what they did early on where it was just Jericho and Shivani, that pairing works very well, or if you had those two and then Excalibur kind of calling the matchups, I would have been fine with that because you didn't get a lot of Tony other than just Jericho ribbing on him. So again, that's just something they don't it feels like people talk about it all the time, but they never seem to work on. They never seem to test the commentary booth. They're very set to either that 3 or 4-man booth, which is just it doesn't exist anywhere else in wrestling. It never has existed anywhere else in wrestling, and for good fucking reason. It's too many goddamn voices when you're trying to just watch a product, and it can be distracting, and to the point where sometimes I just don't. You just choose a voice. Like I enjoy Excalibur, so I try to catch as much of him. I ignore JR and anything else that sort of trickles in. I'll catch that, but. Yeah, it's certainly something like it's never perfect in AEW, and it would be something that needs a little bit of work. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. What else can we do?
Exactly. So I think that about wraps it up for the blow-by-blow of AEW Dynamite tonight, but we'll be back probably with something for Full Gear this weekend, and if not for a blow-by-blow for sure next week. Chris, let everyone know where they can hear us.
You can hear us on sounder.com. And that's a podcast site, and that broadcasts out to all the other podcasty sites, apparently. So you can probably hear it on other podcast sites. If not, that's this show. If you want to hear our radio show, tune into 88.7 The River FM, local radio at its best. If you can't hear the radio because you're not in Ontario, Canada, you can get it online, 887theriver.ca. Look under the archives page, or tune in 7 o'clock live on a Wednesday.
Absolutely. I will apologize. I forgot to tweet it this week. Oh, where's that? Oh, I've got my fingers all wrong. Forgot to tweet it, but yeah, that's our Twitter, LowBlow88.7. Follow us on Twitter. We try to let everyone know when new episodes are out of not only the radio show, but of the YouTube show, as well. Thank you all for watching here. Like this video if you enjoyed it. You can subscribe to let you know when there's new videos. Ring the little bell. It also notifies you when new ones go up. Get into the comments. Let us know what your thoughts are for Full Gear, maybe your predictions and that kind of thing. And yeah, we'll be back for another blow by blow here on Low Blow Radio Podcast.
Hopefully with the lighting fixed.
Adios, amigos.
Now I want to wrestle.